go with the expo?
Oh my goodness. That was probably the largest one I've done so far. For me, it was both extremely beautiful, but also very overwhelming because I'm so sensitive. And so being around so many people and then being able to pick up on like, they carry this thing with their mother. I'm like, oh my God, it's coming from everywhere. So, but it was also really beautiful and we had a really good turnout coming into the room. That was one of my biggest fears was like, I'll have like 0 people, 2 people coming in. So it was cool to see kind of the turnout of people who were ready to learn about their ancestral traumas and helping to heal whatever they carry. So it was very beautiful for me to see that other people were interested in that.
Good.
And
That's
also, it went
amazing.
really well with the client who decided to come up on stage. I always say you have to be so courageous and brave to share in front of other people, some very deep things that you experienced even when you were very young or with your family. And so it's always an honor when I get to allow them to share their story. Yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah, but it
can't, I
went well.
mean, and it's very healing for other people, even though other people inside may be thinking, oh my God, I would never do that. But witnessing someone else who has the courage to do that in some way really helps them to tap into things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to heal, have the courage to do themselves, so they can vicariously do it in a way.
No, yeah, that's what I shared at the end was because at the end I opened up for questions and somebody was telling me that she connected her story very closely to what she was witnessing. And I said, that's why I say at the beginning, even if you're not chosen, or even if you're just an observer of the process, you will still take something from this because you'll be subconsciously connecting their story to what did I experience when I was that age, or what did I experience with my mother? Because we all have a mother. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have a mother. And so, yeah. And the first time I ever did a conference, I remember looking back and out at the audience after we had done the process and then seeing like so many red eyes and like tears were falling and other people too. And it was very beautiful just to feel the difference in the energy of the room and how much softer people felt afterwards. Cause yeah, there's a healing that happens for everybody, not just the client. For me too. I said I work on my stuff when as well when people come and do their work as well because I'm connecting my story to theirs as well. So it's healing for everybody, not just the client.
Yeah. Let's talk about, I mean, because we didn't even mention what this was about, family constellations. So, what can you explain what family constellations is to somebody who has no idea what that is?
Well, first I want to preface, even my teacher who's been doing this for 15, 16 years, she always says it's not something that can be explainable. It's more like an experience. And even after this long of doing it, I can't put it fully into words what happens in a constellation. So just kind of take what I say very loosely and know that it's not encapsulating all of what happens in a constellation. But basically, this was created by a German psychotherapist named Bert Hellinger. And it's actually, I would say, more well known or more widely known in other countries aside from the United States. But it's come here in like the last 50 years. And so not as many people here know what it is. But Bert Hellinger, he brought together many different modalities. So he learned from Viktor Frankl. So he learned psychoanalysis. He learned about hypnosis. So even like traditional forms of psychotherapy. But he also merged all of that with his background in searching in metaphysics and spirituality as well. So he learned from the Zulu people of Africa, and that was one of his biggest influences because they believed in, oh, I'm experiencing this thing because my mom did this thing in her life, and so I'm carrying this and living my life is very similar. So that's how they would work through their problems, is looking to their past or their ancestors and what came before them. And so they were a very big influence in his life. And he ended up going to Africa because he was a Catholic priest and he was supposed to help convert them or show them the right way. And they ended up kind of really helping to open his mind to new ideas because he learned their language. So it's
Wow.
pretty cool. Yeah, so he brought together from his whole life of searching, he brought together family constellations. And it goes by many different names. So some people call it systemic constellations because it's not always having to do with family members, but I still just kind of use the traditional word for it because that's how people know about it. But we basically we do a process. Someone comes in with an issue and it can be done in a group setting or also one-on-one. And in a group setting, usually people would be sitting around in a circle, and then I would be sitting to the left of my client, and my client would be sitting to the right of me. And that's for a purpose because everything gives information, and you can feel the difference. If I was sitting on the other side, it feels unbalanced, or the other person can't fully settle in or trust me. So the reason they're on the right side is because they come first, and I'm putting them first. And also, one of my teachers, his name is Gary Stewart. I did a podcast with him, and he shared with me Bert Hellinger's beliefs of why they sit on that side. And he said it's because me as a facilitator, I'm entering into we call it their family system, as the newest member of the family. So it makes sense that they come before me. And so, yeah, it's because I'm the newest member of the family, helping to show something or reveal something to them. So yeah, they come in with an issue. Could be anything at all. Could be like, I always only make this amount of money and I can never go higher than this. Or it could be, I always have this specific pattern in relationships and I always choose men who end up the exact same way at the end. or women, men or women. I'm trying to get out of that because I always go to men. I think it's my bias. And so, but yeah, so it could be relationships. It could be recurring health patterns, illnesses that come up. It could be emotions that you don't know where it comes from. So it's like I always carry this sadness and I don't know where it's from. And I haven't been able to find the solution. And then we do the process. So the process is called a constellation. Some people say it sounds like it should be something with the stars, but it has nothing to do with horoscopes or anything like that. It's more just because we bring in representatives. So like let's say it was an issue like I always fight with my mother and I want to have a more harmonious relationship with her or more love there. So I would ask somebody from the group if this was a group setting, or I'll ask this person to choose somebody to represent your mother. And then they would get up, they would choose the person that feels most right to them, and then they put them into what we call the morphogenic field, or the quantum field, or the healing field, whatever you want to call it. And this person steps in, and then all of a sudden they start to feel the emotions of this person they're representing. It's almost like the field opens up this moment to allow whatever was never processed to come through and to process. So I've seen people come in to represent the mother, and right when they jump in, they're just already tears are falling. And I'm like, just let it out. That's what needs to be processed. So it's beautiful. But yeah, it's miraculous because there's been moments even when I was a representative where I was like standing a certain way, or I said something like, I remember one time I was representing someone's inner child, and I said something almost like, oh, I just want to go over to the side and sit down and just read a bunch of books. And then he was like, that's exactly what I was like when I was 5 years old. Or when I was whatever age. They were small and they loved to just go be by themselves. So it's almost like you get revealed about this person, or you take on some form of their energy and feel into what needs to be processed. And so that's kind of a big part of the process. But as a facilitator, my job is to stay open. So stay receptive and relaxed and in a present state so that I can allow whatever words want to come through to come through. So I might ask one of the representatives who's representing the mother to speak to the client, and we call it healing sentences. So it might be something like having the mother say, see what comes here now. It's not yours to carry. And even something so simple and so powerful and poignant can start a movement in the client, and then they'll feel like this relief. And you'll see visually the relief, like they'll take a deep breath, or you'll feel the release in the tears, or even yawning. It's very much like medicine work. I don't know if you've ever done plant medicine and you feel those releases. I did ayahuasca once in the jungle, and just the yawning was like woof, letting go of all this stuff I was carrying. So it's very similar to that, but without the psychedelics.
Yeah.
um,
Which is great.
yeah, so yeah, that's kind of in short the process. If it was one-on-one, we'd be using items, and you could use anything. Like my teacher has even shared she did one in a restaurant with a friend, and they used forks and spoons. So it could be anything. Me personally, I use
Interesting.
shadow cards. Yeah, I use shadow cards, and in that setting, because we don't have representatives, the other person who's working, they hold the item and then they're the ones feeling the emotions or processing on their own. So that's a very powerful way to do it as well. But it can be done on Zoom. So if they're at home, they take items from around them, or maybe they have them already with them and chosen. So it's done with objects instead of people. But it's very powerful when there's people.
Yeah. That's what I was
So
thinking.
that's
I mean, the objects might be able to help things come through, but when you have another person there that you can feel them, you can hear them, it's a whole nother
yeah,
experience.
you're getting to see it from the outside, and that can be really powerful. But I don't want to knock even just the personal sessions because you get to see all aspects. You get to feel into what is it like to be the mother of this child? What is it like to be uh, feeling love? Like if we had a representative for love, then they get to feel that fullness of what is love. So it can be really powerful both ways because you don't get to see all of the aspects if you have other people representing.
True.
And the interesting part is you could even have pieces of paper and write down the aspects and then hold on to the piece of paper without knowing which is which, and still it's like right on every single time you're representing accurately without knowing who it is. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what happens in a session. Then yeah, basically we're just shifting whatever didn't get processed in ancestrally, and many times people see huge shifts happen in their life even very shortly after, or the people who were part of the constellation, like let's say it was the mother, you'll start to see shifts in there. And we don't do it to change other people at all, but when we heal for ourselves, we're not healing just us, we're helping to heal people who come before us, but also people who come after us. It really shifts a lot for everybody. That's why a lot of my workshops are called Break the Cycle, because you're the one shifting for not just yourself, but other people as well. Yeah.
So you mentioned the mother a lot, but other than the mother, are there any other common issues that come up or problems to be resolved in these kinds of sessions?
Oh, yeah. The mother is a big one because we're gestating in her belly for so long and we carry so much of that DNA. There's a big connection with the mother. I'd say a lot of my constellations have to do with the mother. And even things you don't think have to do with mother have to do with mother. So relationships, people think they're coming in to just work on their partner, like my partner needs to change, but really subconsciously we have this connection to our mother and how she chooses men, or we have this connection to how we were loved when we were a child, and so we're choosing people who will bring up those issues again. And so that's really the root of it. And it's not even relationships, but also money, because that's where life comes from. So our capacity to take in life from our parents has to do directly with how much life we're willing to take in our actual life. So parents are very intertwined in like everything.
Yeah, does
And
the father ever come up?
no, yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying parents. But the mother is very important. But yes, also definitely father. And there are different beliefs that I've heard from other facilitators because my podcast dives in with many other facilitators. I know I feel like always I'll be learning more and more about constellations. I'll never be finished in developing. So that's why I started the podcast to learn even more because I don't ever want to stop learning. And I think it was Gary Stewart, if you go back to that episode, he talks a little bit about abundance and how because it has to do with divine masculine and feminine as well. So it's like the masculine is our ability, I believe that's our ability to keep our money, and the feminine is the ability to create the money. So if we have an issue with our mother, we have an issue creating money. We have an issue with actually keeping it with us, and we're always just letting go. and not bringing in enough. Usually that has to do with father. So yes, both of them. But also it could even be where we come from. So for me as a facilitator, it's going to take me a long time to learn about many different regions and countries and their history, but that definitely has a lot to do with it. Wars that have happened in our ancestry, or how our family played a part in that, and how we're carrying whatever actions were taken by them as well with love, because we want to belong to the family system. Yeah, it has so much to do with so many aspects. So there's many things that could be worked on. Or even like if we had to flee from a country and feeling like we didn't have enough, like if our parents grew up in poverty because they had to start over in a new country. And without knowing, we grow up and we feel like, oh, I don't belong anywhere. And really that's connected to our family and what they experienced. And so we carry that genetically. So yeah, it's many things. Or like I said, illnesses. Yeah. What was your question?
What kind of retreats, like how do you structure this within a retreat setting?
Yeah, so I have a retreat coming up in Ireland with Orion Retreats. We're creating it together, which I know you've interviewed Lauren Dickinson. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do let's see. Well, obviously it has to be more planned out because we also have like excursions and a lot of fun things to do, but I chose all of the excursions and where we're going to be going, and one of them was Kilmainham Prison. And to me, that is very symbolic because it shares the ancestry of the land. Because this work is not just about all love and light and the beauty of life, because we wouldn't be here without all of the decisions that our family members have made for us to be here. And so that's why I wanted to definitely have that there. But it's also symbolic of breaking free from our own inner prisons that we have ourselves in. So a lot of the things I chose are very symbolic. There's even a garden called Bridget's Garden in Ireland, and it has 4 different gardens, all based on the seasons. And it's very symbolic also of life, for like these cycles that we go through in life on a smaller scale, but also on a larger scale. And in there, they have a room where you can rent it. And then so we'll be doing like a constellation in there. But a lot of it can't be planned. So I can't plan which people will be there and what they'll want to work on, because I want to leave it open for, spirit to move, because you can't contain what is spirit. So it's kind of just confining it in these smaller spaces where we can open up to whatever the people want to work on specifically. But it's always perfect who comes, because it's almost like they all have to work on the same thing, or they all have the same intention to work on this specific thing. So yeah, it's mostly just about opening up certain times and almost like portals of time where this will be an opening for us to work on what you want to work on. And also there's time for like me to give instruction, to share about, the origins of this work, or stories from my past. Because sometimes, like we talked about earlier, hearing somebody's stories, you can connect your own stories subconsciously. Then that kind of opens up the door for the healing. So that's part of it, as well as the instruction. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's very interesting. Going to a prison on a retreat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, it starts at the beginning, because we're starting off in Dublin, and that's where it's at. And
And
I
it's an
really feel
active
like
prison?
it's almost like a no, it's like it's older. It's not used anymore. It's more like a museum now. But
Okay.
I shared with Lauren, it's almost like a hero's journey, because that's also what my life has been like. So it's allowing them to see their life and what they've experienced in a symbolic way. So we start off there, but then throughout the journey, then they start to open up and release and free themselves from what they've been holding themselves into for so long, or through generations. Yeah. And
And
also,
during
I'm
your
very
retreats,
interested. Yeah.
does everybody get a chance to be at the center of the constellation?
Well, we'll have 8 full days. And so there'll be plenty of time for people to do their work. But I'm very weary about promising something, because I don't know what the field is going to want to work through. And the way that I work is extremely intuitive because also I have training in intuition, psychism, mediumship. And so the way I work is that way. So I go through the group, I ask people, what do you want to work on? Then I tune into who's the most ready, because that will help to transform the whole group, and it will lead into the next one and the next one. And yeah, so it has more to do with your readiness and vulnerability. And that in and of itself can be even more powerful, like we said, for people watching. So I don't want to promise you will absolutely get one, but it's probably highly, extremely likely because we'll be together for such a long time, 8 days. Yeah.
What about working with other facilitators at their retreats? Is that something that you do?
I would love to. That's actually how I found Orion Retreats, because I was looking for other retreats I could join in on just to start sharing this work and growing what I do. And then I found Lauren, and then we just started building my own. Yeah, that's definitely something I'd love to do, to share in other people's stuff. So I'm open to being a guest speaker or a guest facilitator. If you really love this work and would like to have someone there, I'm open as long as I have the time.
And what are the best retreats, like wellness retreats or yoga retreats? I don't know. What are the best retreats to put this something like this within?
Wow. Well, I would say really it's anything as long as the intention is for healing, for deep healing. Because I know some people in this work, it's almost like you run from going deeply into certain emotions or some of our harder aspects. So it's for anybody who's willing to shift and transform something. So it's not really limited to any specific modality or way of doing spirituality. It's more just people who are ready for transformation. So yeah, I'm open to all.
What is one of the biggest transformations that you've witnessed?
Ooh, myself. Because that's like the closest that you have to understanding the shifts that could happen is really with yourself. And that's what a lot of the training is doing your own work, because then you get to see what does it feel like to be in the client chair, and how do you run from things? How do you disassociate so that you can recognize it in somebody else? And so a lot of it is personal work that gets done. And yeah, I mean, a lot of things have really shifted in my life. So if I could think about it, I, so specifically with my father, the things aren't perfect right now, but I'll get to that in a second. So when I was 12, well, first, my parents divorced when I was 6 years old, and there was abuse that happened, like adultery that happened, and it was just very chaotic for me. And so from 6 up until 12, I have a little brother who's about 4 years older than me. Him and I would go week to week. So a week with mom, a week with dad, back and forth. So we lived two different lives with different rules and different, you know, things that were okay or weren't okay. But when I was 12, there was an incident that happened with my dad where he hit me, and my mom ended up taking custody of me when I was 12. So I didn't speak to my dad until I was in my early 20s, probably. So I grew up just with my mom and my stepdad and my little brother. And yeah, so from that, I really didn't have a close relationship with my dad. And when I started doing constellation work, I have done constellations on connecting with my dad and noticed how many, we call it hidden loyalties, I had with my mother. So the anger that I felt towards my dad, or the you're not a good husband, or the whatever it was really I was carrying my mom's pain for her. And that was manifesting in my relationship with him. And so now I can see such a huge difference in how I see my dad, how I understand my dad, and things really shifted to where now I'm really connected with that side of the family after doing all those constellations on that specific issue. Although it's not perfect, we're doing it, definitely doing a lot more work than I ever thought we would have done, or come closer than I ever thought would have been possible. So that's a big thing. But also with my mom, just really having much more compassion for her and love and understanding for her, because I think we look at our parents as if they're heroes or they should be perfect, but this work really humanizes them and helps you to see even for them it didn't start with them. and they carry a lot of pain as well. And it's our job as we grow up and we become adults, it's our job to do that healing, to shift the patterns, that we don't continue it forward and keep passing it on. So it's up to us to choose that. So yeah, a lot of compassion there. But even my career, like so many things have shifted really from this work. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work. I've done so many forms of healing, but when I came across this one, I just knew this is exactly what I will do for the rest of my life, because it's that powerful in helping us to understand our subconscious hidden emotions, our hidden ways that we choose men. Like for me, I had a constellation where I wanted to know, why do I always choose men who don't stay? And you can see how connected this is to my father. Men who don't stay or who are not in my life. So my childhood self was always choosing the same thing, because it's this pattern to show me what is underneath and what needs to be healed. And my thought was, it's the men. They're the ones that need to change. And constellations showed me, when I did a process, was like, you're the one subconsciously carrying this thing, and this is why you're attracted to this kind of person and are choosing these kinds of people. And so that has definitely shifted a lot in how I choose men or what I'm more attracted towards. So it's, yeah, it helps you see yourself, and you think it'll help you change the other people, but no, it'll show you what's really, really the root of it and what's underneath in your shadow, so to speak. Yeah, that was a long-winded thing. Lots of things.
Yeah, but that's amazing. And I really
Yeah.
do relate it to plant medicine. It's the first time that I did it. I told everyone, I was like, wow, it was like 10 years worth of therapy in one go.
Yeah.
And it was exactly that, like I remember seeing my lineage, like it showed me without words, like that telepathic communication that was just like showed me my mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother. It showed me that maternal line. And there was a lot of anger there, and it was just compassion, so much compassion, and so much showing you what you didn't know, what you couldn't see. And it really does soften and allow you to have empathy. And a lot of that melts away. I don't think it completely solves the problem. I think once you open Pandora's box, you need to do a lot of work to integrate all of that. But it's really cool that Family Constellations is a way of doing that doesn't require. I'm very interested in all these different modalities that don't require plant medicine, because I think that plant medicine is amazing. But then it also has, for some people, it's not. It's not something they should touch. So having something like this available that can give you the same outcome is amazing.
Yeah. When you were speaking, something came up that I wanted to share. What was it? Shoot, I can't remember it.
It
It
happens to me
left. I'm
all the
sure it'll come
time.
back when it's needed.
Yeah. I was talking about the mothers, or the maternal lineage.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not coming back. I don't know what happened.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just let it simmer. It'll come back. Um, mm. So, do you have any practical tips for retreat hosts or organizers who want to incorporate family constellations?
Do you mean that they want to be facilitators, or they want a facilitator to come in with them?
Mm, yeah. Well, let's put it this way. Like maybe they want someone to come in, or maybe they don't know anybody and they're thinking, I'll just do this myself. Like what should you be aware of?
Wow. I think this work, it definitely takes a lot of personal development to really be a good facilitator. I'm about to interview someone this week. Her name is Sita. And I watched some of her older podcasts because I like to learn about the facilitators first, just to make sure our ethics and values align in this work. And she was asked the question, what makes a good facilitator? And I really loved her answer. She said, people come, they do the constellation, and for them, their work is done. But for me, my work is always unfolding every minute of every day, basically. Like, I live, eat, and breathe this. And someone asked me this at the Conscious Life Expo too. They were like, do you have to do your own healing to do a constellation, to be a constellation facilitator? And I was like, if you want to be a facilitator, you better be ready. Ready to dive into your work every minute of every day. So yeah, it's like thinking, like uncovering the shadow side. So I have this thought and I'm like, okay, what is underneath that? Because that was weird. Or that does not feel aligned with what I really believe. So what's underneath? Or what is the emotion that's under that? So if I have this anger come up, then digging down underneath to see what is actually there. And really, it's a sadness that I felt betrayed by this person, or I wanted so much more. So it's really uncovering so much of, yeah, what we hide from ourselves. And in that way, you can see it in your clients when they come to you with something. So really, yeah, it takes a lot of personal development and always being having self inquiry to dive deeper. So yeah, if you want to be a facilitator, yeah, anybody could do this. It's not, you don't have to be special to do it, but it takes a lot of development. And I definitely recommend having a really practiced mentor or facilitator. I lived with Sonia, who was my teacher, who had been doing it for 15, 16 years before I even met her. And also does things like EFT, hypnosis. She taught me Reiki, dream interpretation, NLP, like so many things she does. And that I think was extremely important for my development and what I can give to others, because she gave that to me. So yeah, it takes a lot of development and also dedication to really be a good facilitator. But you could do it if you really love this work. It's possible. And yeah, I would say just find a good facilitator or mentor, and also be part of constellations and see what it's like. Yeah.
Is there anything that could go wrong if you don't know what you're doing, or if you just don't have the experience to guide this? And especially, I think about closing the space can be very important. And sometimes, especially starting out or just trying things out, we forget that.
Yeah, Sonia very much drilled this into me, was like, this is very sacred work and you're opening this up, and you could cause damage if you aren't careful. You could re-traumatize somebody if they go into their trauma, or they're having a PTSD episode and you push too far and you overwhelm their nervous system. So you really have to be very careful with, and I feel like intuitive, to know how far this person is ready to go at that moment. I've actually had an experience where I found out some information about a traumatic experience I had at a previous job. And it was like 3 days I cried and cried and cried and couldn't get out of it. And I had to like wrap myself in a blanket because my nervous system was so like open and just raw. It was a terrible experience, but Sonia actually helped me move through and showed me some techniques. And she told me that this would make me a better facilitator, because I realize and recognize how important it is that you don't push somebody too far. And she also said that, what's that saying? It's like, oh, it's like smooth waters don't make for skilled sailors. So she's like, you're right up in the storm, but that'll make you a better sailor. I was like, okay, I don't want to be in the storm anymore. No, but I am grateful for that experience, because it really viscerally helped me to understand how important to not push somebody farther than they can go. So yeah, it takes a lot of intuition and knowing, and like I said, sacredness, and taking it very seriously, because you don't want to do that to somebody. Yeah, but be careful.
Yes.
But it is
So,
beautiful work, and it can be extremely helpful for people. I've never seen a bad thing come from it, but I've heard stories, because Sonia's been in this a lot longer. So,
can you
what was
share a
your question?
story?
A story where it didn't go well? Well, I heard of this facilitator who something came up where it was like somebody wasn't somebody's father and nobody knew about this. But he pointed to where it was exactly this person. And so that person the client working, turned against their own father, who could have very well been genetically connected to him, but it could have been farther back somewhere that happened in the generations. It doesn't mean that it was this specific father. Does that make sense? So it caused a lot more trauma.
So
Okay, so
he
do you need me
was
to
a
read?
representation, but he was
So it was
actually.
So it was a client who had a representative for a father. Somewhere in this bloodline, there was a secret father who was not included. So a woman had a baby with somebody and said it was a father who wasn't actually the father. So that man was excluded from the family system. So this facilitator said to this person, your dad's not your dad. But it could
She
have
said
been,
it?
yes, your father's not your father, but he could have very well been your father.
Oh my God.
But it is accurate that the field was showing generations back, possibly, like maybe it could have been 5 generations back, and all these people are carrying an excluded man. Doesn't mean that your father's not your father. So Sonia shared with me, be careful to say this is specifically what this means, because this is so multidimensional that it could have been generations ago. So be very careful with your words and how you say it, because that caused a lot of trauma for that person to feel like my dad is not my dad, when really they could have been. And so it caused this big thing in the family that didn't have to be that way. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
be
that's a pretty
careful
big
what you
deal.
say. Yeah. It
So
takes a lot of, yeah. What's that?
you mentioned at some point something about science. And I can't remember what you said exactly, but is there any scientific evidence to back up the effectiveness of family constellations?
Yeah, I would say if you're interested in that, there's one of my teacher's teachers, his name is Mark Wolin. He wrote a book called It Didn't Start With You. So that's a good resource. He talks about scientific studies because that's where a lot of his background is from. And yeah, he talks about like epigenetics and how they've done tests with rats to show genetically they carry even personality traits. Like one of the tests was they were shocked whenever they smelled honeysuckle. I believe that was the smell. When they smelled something, they had this negative stimulus. And then they tested 2 generations later, so the grandchildren of these rats, and the grandchildren, they had never been exposed to the shock, but whenever they smelled this thing, they would run. So they were still having effects of what their grandparents experienced. And I'm sure in Germany, I'm pretty sure I've heard studies, I haven't dove really deep into this, but studies where they can take like cells and see how it's connected genetically to the person. So like if the person is feeling an emotion, they can see the some kind of number measure how it shifts whenever the person is feeling something, even though it's apart from them. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So how emotions are connected to that. Or I think also they've done it where it's connected to family members too. So, and Sonia knows these really well. She's so smart. But she talked about something like this man was doing genetic healing, so like probably something like family constellations, and they had his DNA and they had his grandson's DNA, and they were able to measure how the numbers changed when this just the grandfather did his work, how it changed not only in his DNA but also in his grandson's DNA, how they both shifted at the same time. But I think this is
What?
in other countries like in Germany and in other places. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to ask Sonia what the source is, but she's told me about these things. Yeah, so there's definitely scientific evidence if you look into epigenetics and how they used to call it junk DNA, that like 99% of our DNA was just nothing. But really, they've started to uncover that it's our religious beliefs that get passed down through generations, it's our emotions, it's our personality traits. There's so much in there and information that gets passed on from both parents. Yeah.
This is all fascinating to me because it just reminds me that there's still so much that we don't know.
You know,
And
this is so funny. When I was
mm,
at the Conscious Life Expo, there was this guy who he has this company named Ancient Azatlan, and he goes and like archaeologically finds old, like really old, it's like crystals that have etchings and carvings on them, like thousands of years ago. And you have to go digging for them in certain places in Mexico. And he showed pictures of them, and these are thousands of years old, and they have DNA, like the strands. Like you can see it on these carvings. Like they knew what DNA looked like. There's also like aliens on there. It's pretty interesting. If you look, I think it's ancientazatlan.com. So cool. So I went up to him and I was like, that is so crazy. They didn't have like science like we have. They didn't know what it looked like the double helix strands, but they still were able to like make it on these specific little 1,000-year-olds like carvings. Pretty cool. So they were very advanced, much more advanced than we thought.
I'm pretty sure that we are the dumbest ones. We're not as intelligent as we think. I think most of it just got burned or destroyed. They hid the evidence because there's just too many things that can't be explained, that can't be replicated today in the same way that it was made back then. And I don't think the picture that's painted to us that they were, I'm sure at one point there were cavemen, but I definitely don't think that they were cavemen, um,
Yeah, there's a lot to
unintelligent
learn.
people building all of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I am the way I am, where I'm always open to uncovering new information or something new and not have my mind made up because, yeah, things are always changing. At one point, someone would have laughed at you if you said, we have these tiny little atoms in our body and everything is made up of them. Like someone would have been like, you're crazy.
And
But
what do you
really,
do
yeah.
in that situation? Like if you have someone in the retreat that maybe they thought it was interesting and they were curious and they were open, but at the moment of like, okay, we're doing this, all of a sudden their skepticism creeps in. Like, have you encountered anything like that? And how do you handle it?
Well, I haven't personally encountered it yet, but I spoke with Gary Stewart, like I said, on the podcast. And he told me, because I brought this up to him kind of as a question, because I use these episodes almost like I'm being trained by all these people. So I ask questions for myself of like, how can I be a better facilitator? And he said, I asked him, have you ever had a skeptic? And he said, I have. And at the end of it, because he was an observer, he said that person was almost kind of like dumbfounded. And he was like, I don't know what to make of this because I'm an atheist. And I feel like I just experienced something that I'm not able to describe, but that is very real. And so he said, could you hold the belief that you were once an atheist and you just had an experience that shifted your perception of what it means to be part of the universe or whatever he said? And so it really shifted his perspective because he experienced it. So he said to me that he would just recommend to those people who are skeptical to just come in and experience it or to observe it and see for yourself. But my job is not to change somebody's perception or make them think a different way. It's more just like you can have your experience, and your experience is your experience, and I can't control that. So, yeah, I'm not my grandparents were Christian, and they're very much like, you have to do it this way. So I kind of stray away from any of that. Like, you have to see it this way, because I'd rather just people experience for themselves and make up their own mind than to say it is this way. Yeah, so I don't like to convert people into anything.
Yeah, I like leading by example. You just be you, you show up and you offer what you offer, and people can either choose to accept it or not. And if they do,
Yeah,
great,
take
and
it
if
or
they
leave
don't,
it.
great. It's all good.
It may just plant the seed for them to see it in 5 years when their life brings them to a point where they're like, oh, and now I get it. Or now I experienced it and I see. And I can think back to that moment where I was judging and see, oh, there was much more happening in that moment that led me on a journey of my own. So I'm okay with just being the seed. Yeah.
I think a lot of it is just fear of being vulnerable, fear of being seen, fear of being laughed at, because people often fear what they don't understand or what they don't know.
Yeah, and I understand that definitely. To me, it seems very normal because I've been in this field for 10 years and I've seen like psychics giving information to me, and I'm like, oh, that's normal. And like I live it every day, like that's my reality. I think it's because I've had so much confirmation where I felt this thing about this person. Like I remember I used to work at this booth, and I understood that this woman loved to write. And so I asked her, do you like to write? And she was like, how'd you know? I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm a psychic. So that's what I was doing at the beginning, was just kind of asking these questions to confirm I was receiving correctly. And yeah, it's been little things like that where it has really solidified my belief in this stuff because I've seen it personally.
You just launched your book, A Journey into Truth, Unveiling Life's Secrets for Truth Seekers. What is that about?
Yeah, so that was released February 2nd, 2022. So 2222.
Nice.
And yeah, I self-published that book, but it was at the end of my journey of seeking. So really like diving into metaphysics, spirituality, and just my own inner explorations. So it talks about just what happened in like that 7-8 year long journey and who I was meeting, but also the hardships that I experienced that led me on that path. So that's what I'm saying, is like sometimes just that seed is all that's needed, because I just needed a seed for someone to share about music healing in a college classroom. And that was the seed that led me on this extremely long journey of development for myself and self healing. And so I talk about like going into the jungle. We talked about plant medicine. So I talk about my ayahuasca ceremonies in the jungle. I talk about just the tribes I've met. I talk about learning from Abraham Hicks, and yeah, just all the different modalities. And it was also like Buddhism. I learned from the Soka Buddhists, and they taught me like chanting, different meditations, sound healings, breath work, like everything. I tried a little bit of everything. So I talk about that in the book, but then a large majority of the book is also just the lessons. So these small little snippets of like philosophical insights that I've gotten from certain teachers or from my own life experiences. So really it was just meant to be the seed for somebody who might be in that breakdown period, as I called it, and ready for their breakthrough. And that's why my company is all about the butterflies. It's transformation. So going from the caterpillar to the butterfly. So this is meant for caterpillars.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I just have one last question. Is there anything else you want to talk about regarding family constellations or retreats?
I would say I'm not the only facilitator in the world. There are many facilitators. And that's also why I created my podcast, because I wanted people to come into contact with many different minds and ideas in this field. So if you're interested in learning about constellations, that is a good resource. I would say if any part of this calls to you, then to follow that path and to learn about it. See if there's a facilitator in your area. You can also reach out to me. There's a contact form on my website, vibrate2create.com. And my email is alexis@vibrate2create.com. And yeah, I'm just sharing this to share awareness on this topic. And that is really my main reason for wanting to be more public with it. I'm actually extremely introverted and don't love to be in the spotlight. But my life has kind of brought me to the point of like, you're ready to share it with other people. So that is what it's really about for me, is giving awareness and helping people to understand maybe where the root of their issues come from, to help them change their life. So yeah, if you really want to shift, transform, heal something in your life, I really feel like this is, to me, it was one of the most powerful modalities. After my many years of searching, that's why I stayed here. So yeah, I think that says something about this work. If it's the only one I was willing to stay in, that's why.
Yeah.
The only one that really kept me there. So yeah.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing.
Thank you for helping me to share this with others. Yeah, thank you.